In this lecture, we will see how VS Code assists us with databases. And for this lecture, I assume a lot of things for your system and for your knowledge. Well, in this lecture, we will see how we can connect and write basic queries with VS Code. But in order to do this, you should already have a database installed. So this is an important step that you should take outside this lecture. I won't show you how to do this because there are many flavors out there. I just want to show you the basics. I will use inside this lecture the MySQL database. Well, installing is one thing. Then you have to also need to have a user configured. This is also a important step. I will leave some resources attached to this lecture. And also you need a database created. So let me show you the point at which I am inside this lecture. I will go to a terminal. If you have MySQL, you can also check it together with me. So I will start MySQL inside the terminal. So currently I'm inside the MySQL monitor. If you have it installed, you can do the same. First of all, let's see if we have databases. So here I will call show databases. And previously I created this cool app database, just for fun. So I will use this cool app database. If I want, I just can drop it. I can say drop. And now it was dropped. I can simply recreate it to start fresh. Alright, and now I can see my database. It is right here. I will use it to connect. Well, the next important step is to know the port your database is running on. And we can see this very simple with the SQL command show global variables like port. We want to know the exact port our database is running on. And currently this is the default port 3306. This is my port. Now with this data and of course with my user and my password, which is configured outside, we are able to set up VS Code to connect to our database. The first thing that we need inside VS Code is an extension. And let's just search for SQL inside the extensions view. And as you can see here, we have many flavors for extensions. A very popular one, and the one I will be using, is this SQL Tools extension. I will install it. Alright, but as you can see, you have multiple options to choose from. And as soon as I installed this extension, now I will have a new entry in my left bar called SQL Tools. It says no connections found, so let's add a new connection. In order to add a new connection, we first need a database driver specifically made for our database. So I will search VS Code Marketplace for database drivers, and I'm using MySQL as a database. This means that I will need this SQL Tools MySQL or MariaDB driver. If you are using another driver, for example, another database like PostgreSQL or even Oracle or Redshift, I guess Oracle is recently supported. This is the one right here. You can now install the driver for your specific database. I will install the one for MySQL. Alright, the driver is installed. Now if we go back to our connections, you'll see now that we are able to add a new connection. I will add a new connection to MySQL. Alright, and here's the point where things are becoming interesting. This is the place and the point where you need to configure your connection, and it is the most complicated part. If you reach this point, and if this point will be successful for you, then the rest is easier. Let's give a name to our connection. I will call this MySQL cool connection. You can give it any name you like. Here we are using localhost because we are assuming that we are connecting to a local host. If you are connecting to a remote database, you should put the IP of your database. Then the port we saw is 3306. The database, If you remember, for me is this cool app, so here I will say cool app. The username, for me I will use the root user. I have configured it to use the root user. If you have configured another user, you should put it right here, the username, and then the password will be asked by the SQL tools driver credentials. Here you can select another password mode, maybe ask on connect, but I prefer this SQL tools driver credentials. If you have no password configured for your root, maybe you can use empty password, but I don't know if this will work. And also we should specify a connection timeout, maybe 50, like this. If you don't specify this, I saw that some people get some errors. All right, and now we can, before saving the connection, we need to test if this configuration right here works. So let's test this. And here it will tell me that it wants our credentials. So I will click allow, and now I will use my password. All right, and we see the green button right here. This was the most complicated thing. If you get errors right here, maybe you can ask in the Q&A section, or maybe you can search online. As I said, this is the most complicated step. Now if we see green right here, we can save this connection, and then VS Code will be able to connect again when we reopen it. All right, we can review these connection details. I will call connect now. All right, and now we have a new connection to our database. We are able to write SQL queries inside our database. And let's see how this is working. This is a new file in our type system right here. If I will save it, VS Code will create an SQL file, but you can now use any SQL file because you will be able to run the queries from it. Let's see how we can run queries from SQL files. All right, let's first create a table. So I will say here that, hey, create this table employees with a name. I will run this. All right, and I'm not receiving an error, which means that everything is all right. Now if I will go to the database view, I can see my connections right here. I can even see a query history, but I can see also more details about my database. And now if I will go to the tables, I will see our newly created table right here. Currently, I can only see the name, and if I want to check what is contained inside this database, inside this table, let me close this. I will show table records. Currently, this is empty. It says no data. Let's add some data into it. And now I can't just click this button, run on active connection, because this button will run all the queries inside this file. So it first will try to create this table again, and this will lead into an error. If I only want to run this query right here, I can simply select it, right click it, and select run selected query. And here you will also see the keyboard shortcut if you want to use it. All right, I will run this, everything will be all right. And now if I will check this again, I will call show table records, and now I will see my entry right here. If I also want to have a query for this, we can also make a query. Let's say that we want to select the name from our employees. Let's run this. And again, I see my file, my result right here. I can also, let's insert multiple values right here, maybe a new name like this. Let's also run this. All right, and now if I will check the contents, now you can see, I can see the contents of my table right here. Of course, here I can also get multiple ways in which I can run with, I can sort the results in this table. For example, I can sort it by name like this. If there will be multiple columns, you can sort them also by this. Also, in the lower view, you will get a new entry called SQL console, and here you will see messages from SQL from time to time. Of course, you can also export what you are getting right here. If I will click export, I will have two options. Select results as CSV or as JSON, and I can export whatever I want to persistence or to clipboard. This is what VS Code gives us as options. Well, this was just an introduction to VS Code and SQL files. Of course, when we will write our SQL queries or our SQL files, you will get all kind of snippets or content assist from VS Code. For example, inside an SQL file, if I will press the IntelliSense or the IntelliCode keyboard shortcut, the Control Space shortcut, I will get these code snippets right here, you know, and this will help me a lot with my queries like this, and I can select this and I know that this is a keyword from SQL.